This is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped in 41 at age 2. I was born in 39, brought to Moulton, Alabama, a very small town, outside Moulton, and put on what amounted to a pigsty farm, a dump site. Horrible abuse beyond belief. Given another name, if kidnapping and taking from a loving family, and my father's Edward VIII, who married Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, he was never married to this American spy, and she is, I was looking for those papers. Wallace was illegitimate. Now, these twins were illegitimate. That's what back then they were referred to, and when they gave me Peggy's name, they killed her a couple of weeks before I came, so and Carl, the other twin, was killed right after birth, about a month after birth, and they were a year older than me. Uh, Now I'm going to lose my train of thought because somebody, before I moved into this room, they got in here before I knew it. They had soaked it in half the floor over there in chemicals, and I woke up in the night wondering if I could remember. Anyway, let me sit, if you don't mind. This is Wallace Simpson, and I do have some other things. She was married to a Spencer, and you get into the Winfield, or I wish I'd found it. I didn't. But this is Wallace, who married, and she married doubles. There were more than one doubles, and they did all this outrageous behavior, and it was blamed on my father. And soon people, not everybody, forgot that my father was even married to Wallace Simpson. The war was going on. Churchill, I want to get to that in a minute. This is my Aunt Georgia O'Keefe, artist. And the reason, supposedly, I think I've shown what I wanted to. No, I haven't. I wanted to show my mom's genealogy sheet again. They were going to use, this is not the real excuse, but they were going to use, supposedly, and I hope lies haven't been told about Mary and my grandfather, George V. This has to do, well, I don't know. They seemingly did have a part in it and take down him. Well, he died, my grandfather, but it's the reason my father assumed, but Mary, my grandmother. They were going to use that. My mom was a school teacher, and they were going to use that she was a commoner, and so, and now look at the so-called royal family that's a bunch of fakes, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. My mom was Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, and if you can see it, this is the O'Keefe genealogy. But okay, I'll get to that, and that's Georgia, and that's, I think she died, yeah. And this lady, Anita, isn't that Anita I'm showing? Yeah. I wish I could have met them all, but okay, they had a rough time. They really did after. Okay. This is my mom, and she was a school teacher, and this is Ireland, the O'Keefes, and Churchill. Okay, then you go to Hungary and on down and across George Toto, and I'm not going to read all this, Isabel, and this is up to Holland. And on down to Ida. No, here's Francis Colactus from Ireland. So I thought I'd show you that, and then I want to, you can see I don't know what you can see, I'm having a rough time, and I don't know if people understand. It's not easy for me to, anyway, let me get to it here. If I don't lose my train of thought, because they soaked, and I've had to sleep in here a couple of nights, and then hell, and I can't remember, and that gets scary, because I was almost killed April Fool Day of 80. I shouldn't have walked away from it. It was that bad and massive. Anyway, where was I? I'm losing my train of thought or memory, because I woke up last night and there's one I'm going to go ahead and say this. They gave me their name. They meant for me to use it. In 2009, I'd been up on the mountain on National Park campground. Very few people went up there, and I know I'm perhaps wasting time because I don't have much space and video time left. I was up there. I'd go up there when things got so bad because they've run me with chemicals. And when I'd get a place, and I have an autoimmune disorder. I'm allergic to chemicals, and it causes mass inflammation that affects. Well, now then, I'm losing my hearing from well, let me say that in both ears, and there's other problems. Um, I was up on the mountain though, and they've since closed that down. But it was a nice place up there, huge, but hardly any people went there. But I would go up there over the years when things got so bad. And I'm going to go ahead and say this because it happened. I met a woman up there that was from Channel 7 here, WDBJ 7, who I was told later, I have gone to these people with all kinds of information when I didn't have the money to Xerox it, but I did, and they won't touch it. Channel 10 won't. They've been bought out by Graham. Now, I don't know if that's Graham out of New York, Washington Post, but Catherine Graham's people are certainly not going to, and they've never done it before. It's a shutdown on the media. The national media is always known about what I'm telling my father, who he is, and my mom was an American for God's sake. She was born in Madison, Wisconsin, but the family's from Ireland, and I showed you the genealogy. Now, because I am having trouble with what was put down there, I just came back from Scott Hill retirement. I put all this up, and I'm going to show you something in a minute if I have time that I've dealt with. First of all, Peggy Ann Dempsey Childers is not my name. My name is Margaret Ann Windsor. My father's Edward VIII, married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe Windsor, who was Queen of England. And they took down my father, and now I'm going to skip. Bear with me and try to follow me on this. That might be an exercise. I try to laugh. What can I do but try to laugh it off? Okay, I see well, at least I can open the door. Last night I couldn't. I have a sliding glass door. Maybe I can get some fresh air. I'm going to show this and then go from there. This is where I ran in a political campaign. Larry Flynn endorsed me because for one thing, he'd been shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, while I was doing a book on mind control murders, programming people, just like the Virginia Tech next door. It might shock you and you can prove it. Some of the entertainers who were killed with mind control, heart attack, etc., etc. You can cure an illness or create one. It's the Tesla files that were stolen. And again, I'm going to say they were stolen by the FBI, who I had the letter from in June the 23rd of 79, ongoing investigation, national security involved. Well, think about what I'm telling about. Use of mind control, you could always cure illnesses or create them, like the Ebola, the AIDS, and Center for Disease Control, and all this. So Larry Flint was shot by a program shooter, and later in 83, and this is after they did so much to me and my children. Larry McDonald was one of the doctors I wrote about, and here Mr. Flint says I knew who was responsible for his shooting in Lawrenceville, and he mentions Larry McDonald, and that I know who was responsible for his shooting. Now, I'm back to this. I was writing about my kidnapping. I'm sorry, this is the best I can do. Project Lucid was a book that was published much later after I came up here and all this had happened to me. And a church sent this up to me. I was living on the Appalachian Trail. It's called Project Lucid. Now, I've put this up the last few days, but I'm going to put it up again. It's talking about the end times and chipping, and that's exactly what I was telling. But I was not a biblical person that much, so I didn't know what it was. I was going to end up writing about my kidnapping and the fact that the global Illuminati Freemason Mafia were the ones that kidnapped me. JFK flew in there, and I'll say this again, I know it's redundant, but then some people that just pick it up don't know what, they say they don't know what I'm telling. It's implantable biochips, and they're talking, only I was telling about the people killed with the chips and put them in root canals, and one of the doctors I work for actually put it in a heart bypass, a stent, or I forgot how they said, but anyway, Timothy McVeigh, man, it did get to me, was on death row and put to death for the Oklahoma City bombing. And he always told you, but he fit in the patterns. I knew it the minute I heard it. But here he tried to tell everybody that the U.S. Army implanted a computer chip in his buttocks. But I didn't know I was talking about end times or anything like that when I was doing the book. That's who kidnapped me and took down my father. And the United Nations, because of the illegal treaties that this man allowed to happen after my father left, he and Winston Churchill, etc., I mean, they partnered with General Eisenhower, the American general, became president, and JFK's father was appointed ambassador in 36 till they kicked him out in 46 to England. And of course, JFK, his son, flew in there 39 to 41 and helped in my kidnapping. Went before Congress, Parliament. Now then, one of the reasons I'm making this is I've been telling about the Church of England's part in my kidnapping and the takedown of my father. Cosmos Pope, need to look that up, I guess. He was the Archbishop 36 when my father was king, married to my mom. My mom was married and Dad married in the Church of England. When I was born, I was christened. For some reason, the JFK helped kidnap me, but the two men that I remember they came back later that brought me and put me with Lionel Dempsey, brought a huge portrait. It was my father holding me, much like this, except he didn't have this part, in my christening gown. So I was christened in the church. So they very well, this brought my father back to the castle, back into power, it should have been. He never meant to leave. It was character assassination. He never married Wallace. This whole thing was a friggin' lie. And they knew it. I mean, it was well known among the people I'm speaking of. It was the British intelligence that have helped me, and the citizens of the UK, the Brits, the Aussies, etc. And I want to insert this. From Australia and Canada, I've had people that know tell me that Elizabeth came and they gave the year, and I just looked it up. The only thing is, it wasn't stated that she forced them to sign where she was queen. So how could it happen? Back to the Church of England. Okay, they're attacking now the Pope. He's in Ireland. I wonder when somebody, for instance, will hold the Church of England accountable for what they did to the British people. And my family, certainly my mom and dad and me, and then my children who, when they were born here in this country, they're heirs after me. It's so horrible, and I hope the world has to see what was done to us. I hope I see my children again. Now then, that's the main thing, the Church of England. Fess up and tell the truth yourself. They're holding the Catholic Church accountable next door here in Ireland. I'd like to see it done for once in the United States press and all of them who've covered this up. Well, I showed you that, so I guess that was, I'm trying to think of what else. I did want to put this up because I have been, if you did a background check on me, well, you wouldn't even have my real name. For goodness sakes, you'd have Chick Pig and Dempsey. I married Childers. This thing with keeping me homeless and begging and bounced around and run with chemicals, and some lady, I meant to answer her back, and I thought, no, they're not going to believe that. Yes, they did use chemicals. When I would go up on the mountain, they either came up and soaked when I got a tent. And imagine waking up in the middle of the night to that when somebody's come up there and soaked you. And part of your brain, you're trying to wake up and you can't. I don't have, well, I smelled it. I know the time they'd come and everything. I could do nothing about it but run from here to there. And I don't hate this person. I think if he hadn't been there, probably wouldn't have made it. I'm going to say this, Robert, because this is what you told me. He had no last name, I guess. And I laugh because there's stuff, if I didn't tell it or laugh about it, I don't know what I would do. But anyway, he soaked my tents, and they'd be brand new ones. And because I couldn't get a place to live, I was on the side of the road. Basically, and people say, oh, you could have, there's, like, why doesn't the law work for me, in response to a few people who's questioned off of, they say, well, there's agencies to help you. Well, where are they? No, they're not either. When they're shut down too, they do what they're told to do. All right, exactly. I can't get an attorney, and that's what I'm going to get to here, and I'm going to put it up, I think. I'm getting back to, oh, this is not going to have time. This is where the state trooper who told me when I was up on the mountain and camped out, they were hosts, retired. And her name was Linda and Carl Barton. And by the way, I woke up in the night, I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't remember. It's the stuff that was put on the carpet here. Anyway, somebody poured gasoline on the tent in the middle of the night. I stood outside at they had a picnic table. He and his wife brought me here. But I'd stayed at these places before. It's owned by a Jew. And they really worked me over. They really did. But anyway, I lived there from 2009 August. And forgotten when this was. I had to move. It was about the last, I lived there 17 months, and he put the rent up to $1,015, which I couldn't afford. But she gave me reference and everything. Jean Croft did, the manager. I want to show that, and then I want to show you this, because this is the way they've done it. Out at Scott Hill, and this is going to go off, they have made it so that I've always paid my rent on time or before, but now and then they've left it because of the crap and making me so sick I couldn't stand it. It was horrible what they did. And that's HUD, and they should be held accountable in court for what they did to me. Then, anyway, they've got me now because I left. I wasn't going to take it anymore, and I left. And now they're going to try to say I owe them, which that'll go on my record. And can you see me ever getting this into court? But here is someone who was from another country, and even the FBI, he told me, brought him in D.C. and showed him all they had on him, and gave him orders that they'd send him back to Chile, and I think it was Chile, and he said he'd be killed if he went back there. And so he did what he did, not for